Village of Midlothian special hearing, public hearing for public comment on the referendum question to go on the ballot for April 7th to order. Roll call.
Trustee Price,
Here.
Trustee LaRue,
Here.
Trustee Moskal,
Here.
Trustee Schavone,
Here.
Mayor Ryback.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First off, let me start out with the only item on our agenda this evening is to hear public comment in reference to the proposed real estate transfer tax to be placed on the April 7th ballot. By law, we have to have this hearing before we can make a decision on whether or not we're going to put it on the ballot actually for a question. The transfer stamp tax would be $5,000 per $1,000 value charged to the seller of the property at the time of sale. I'm sorry, $5. What did I say? Oh, 5,000, no, $5, sorry, $5 per thousand, that's good. That is a little steep. $5 per $1,000 value of the house. The vote to approve the ballot question will happen on January 14th after this hearing, and then the residents would have a right to vote on April 7th to vote yes or no for the ballot question. Are there any trustee comments?
I would like to make a comment, just as being part of the Finance Committee meeting as we try to look for solutions to avoid a property tax increase. And this was one of the options that came out of many meetings, much work, much discussion. However, the Finance Committee and the board are still waiting for budget reports and revenue reports. And so we're still trying to figure out what our deficit is, if there's a deficit. So this again was one of the options. I'm hoping, Mayor, do you know that we'll have any of that data before next week?
They're working on it as fast as they can. I've had extra help all week this week.
Okay, and I don't know if Trustee Moskal or would like to add anything to that, but we're still trying to figure out exactly what the deficit is, if there indeed is a deficit, because there's been an awful lot of work that's already occurred, but this again was one of the options.
Yeah, so I would add to that, Karen, the Finance Committee met 3 times in November, on the 7th, the 14th, I think the 21st, and we spent a number of hours trying to come up with a list of options to close the $1.2 million is the number we have right now, is the deficit, and this was just one item. And as Trustee Christ said, we're waiting to get final reports to see in the actual financial reports what that true deficit is. But given the timing and the dates that are required to get the question on the ballot, we had to move forward with at least posing the question or getting the paperwork filed to have it on the ballot in this hearing as part of it. So just as another point, the sum of the items that we came up with from the Finance Committee as a suggestion was just under $1.7 million, and the estimate that we had of the revenue this would generate is approximately $125,000 a year. And it's based on 250 transactions and an estimated price of $100,000 sale price, so it would be $500 a transaction. And if memory serves me correctly, that was based on the 2013 number of transactions. So it could be higher, it could be lower. The value could go up, the value could go down. You don't really know, but we had to put something on the list to consider.
How does this compare to other towns, municipalities around us?
Well, that was distributed to everybody at a Finance Committee meeting, wasn't it, Ellen?
Yeah.
That information. I think we were all given it, Vince.
Let me look and see if I have evidence. I know there was a number of communities around us that have something. We have already a transfer stamp that residents are required to get, and one of the reasons that we put that in place a number of years ago was so that we would have an opportunity to get residents to come and pay their water bill before they leave town, instead of welcoming a new resident with an unpaid water bill. I think we've been fairly successful at that. It's a no-charge stamp today, so it's not an extra trip that the seller or a realtor usually, I think, is who usually comes and gets it. But it's not an extra step that someone would have to take. It would just mean they would have to pay us when we pay them. Unfortunately, I don't have that handout with me, but I mean, I know as an example, I know Alsip has one, that I think is 4 or 5%. 5%, the number that we are proposing is consistent with the neighboring communities that have it. It was a long list, I just.
Yeah, there was a
wish I had
pretty
it.
comprehensive list, and I think if you went through your archives, you could probably find it, or
That
one
might
of us
have-
could
that
provide
might
it.
be- Indeed, may have been one of the ones I was not able to attend due to my back surgery.
But we could get that for you.
Yeah, I'll find it for you.
Any other comments? At this time, I'd like to open the floor to the public for any comments on the referendum question. Yes.
Kathy Caveney, Keeler Avenue. I would not be opposed to this. I think it's a good idea. You know, everybody hates to pay extra fees and extra taxes, but at least this would be a revenue source that is not going to, across the board, affect all the residents at once on an ongoing basis. I do have a question, though. Would this affect, say, a resident decides, you know, they're putting together their will and family trust documents and that type of thing, and they decide they want to deed their home into a land trust, okay? That putting their home into a land trust is going to require that they fill out a deed. Would that type of transfer trigger this transfer stamp? Would you have to pay it if you were doing that type of
I
transaction?
believe that's actually excluded.
It's excluded.
Oh, it is
It will
excluded?
be, that's what the ordinance is written as, it will be, this is for this, really the sale.
Just the sale of
transfer.
property, not if you're transferring it into a trust?
If you're
that you're gonna-
refinancing, there's no charge for that.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you.
Yes.
I also read something, and I didn't particularly understand why. It said something about the stamp, and said that when you got ready, that if this stamp was missing off of the deed, that it wasn't, you didn't have any, you know, that, like if the stamp was missing, it was like you hadn't paid it.
You talking about the
I'm
current stamp?
talking about the stamp, that it says that you get that there's a stamp put on the deed.
Currently, right.
Okay, and it says that if the stamp is missing, that it's like you haven't paid it. Well, it looks to me like with the stamp that goes on the deed, you would have a receipt. So even if the stamp was missing, it looks to me like it would still be that you had paid it.
We don't pay, for the current thing, Theta, you don't come in, it's a no-charge transfer stamp in order for us, for the village to collect outstanding debts. So there is no fee. So I guess, I don't know what the front office does, what kind of paperwork is generated when the realtor comes in, or the attorney, or whoever, to get the transfer stamp and then reconcile those outstanding debts.
Because I was gonna say a stamp can come off at any time.
It's actually an ink stamp.
It's an ink
Like a
stamp.
rubber stamp, an ink
Okay,
stamp,
that's
yeah.
different.
It's not a stick
Okay.
stamp.
Yes.
I know in the past that when towns originally started putting the transfer taxes on, the Association of Realtors protested, sent letters out to residents, there was a big to-do. Do you guys anticipate any of that?
I would anticipate it, yes.
Are they still doing that?
Yes, as far as I know, when Oak Forest tried to do this a couple of years ago, the real estate group got together, so I'm
They are
sure-
very against it. I just want to make sure you guys are aware and anticipating the problems that could come from them.
They were actually very against it when we instituted the stamp. I forget what year it was, 2010 maybe.
Okay.
They were very against it. They sent out mailers then, I think, and they showed up at a number of meetings. And they were, one of the arguments was that we couldn't do it because we weren't home rule at the time, I think. We said we weren't, the law, I think, was written that we couldn't impose a tax.
Mhm.
And we weren't trying to impose a tax at that time, we just wanted to do a stamp. Eventually, they relented, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they show up or start mailing things out again.
And it would have to be an education process. The board would have to do an education process to let the residents know that they,
Because
this was
they
in
will.
lieu of a property tax increase.
They will send mailings, they will make sure that the people in this town hear their side.
They always do.
Anticipate for that.
They do, they have very deep pockets.
Well, then maybe they can come and pay some of our bills then.
Exactly.
You can contact them with that suggested example.
I'll be happy to.
We'll accept.
Are there any other comments from the public? If not, at this time, I will close the floor to public comment, and I will be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I will gladly make that motion.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.